Hello there, you're watching All 24 News World News Program. I'm your host Islam Said, and up next are tonight's top stories. Deadly strikes hit Gaza as UN warns aid may collapse. Dozens killed in Khan Younis and Gaza City, including 4 journalists in hospital attack amid escalating violence that threatens humanitarian operations. Also on news, widespread Palestinian outrage as the resistance calls U.S. veto a green light for continued genocide and ethnic cleansing. Coming up as well, Trump and Xi Jinping hold a phone call on stalled tariffs. Trump hails the talks as positive and warns the EU of more measures. And in Russia-Ukraine developments, Erdogan touts Istanbul talks as historic. NATO pledges 20 billion euros aid to Kiev, while Trump ruled out near-term peace and threatens harsh measures. Stay tuned for reports are straight ahead. Welcome back to the program. Leading on news tonight, an occupation drone hit a tent for displaced people in Al-Mawasi, north of Khan Younis on Wednesday, killing 14 Palestinians, among them 2 children. Meanwhile, Zionist occupation artillery shelled the Sutter area, with fears that that toll could rise as rescue teams search for the survivors. At least 16 Palestinians were killed and dozens injured on Thursday in a wave of Zionist airstrikes across Gaza City. Strikes hit the Shati refugee camp in Zaytun neighborhood, killing 6 people. 8 more were killed near Shifa Tower and the Saftawi area as bombardment by occupation forces intensified. Similarly, 4 Palestinian journalists were killed and others injured on Thursday morning in a Zionist drone strike on a courtyard of the Ma'madani hospital in Gaza City. The attack targeted a journalist's tent, killing a correspondent from Palestine Today TV, according to medical sources. Occupation attacks across Gaza have left at least 70 Palestinians dead and 189 wounded in the past 24 hours alone, according to the besieged enclave's health ministry. The ministry added that the Zionist ongoing offensive has now killed over 4,402 Palestinians since March, with 13,489 wounded. The cumulative death toll since October 2023 has reached 54,677 martyrs, with 125,530 injured. The Abu Ali Mustafa Brigades, the armed wing of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, released footage showing their seizure of two Zionist drones during intelligence missions over northern Gaza. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the organization is working to transport humanitarian supplies from Karim Abu Salim crossing into Gaza, but faces major hurdles. While the UN requested entry for over 130 flower trucks, the occupation permitted only 50 to enter the besieged territory.
We and our partners continue to send supplies to Karim Shalom crossing, where Israeli authorities scan them before they can enter Gaza. For today, we submitted over 130 pre-cleared truckloads for a second and final Israeli clearance, but only 50 of them, which were carrying flour, were approved to enter the Israeli side of the Karim Shalom crossing.
The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, said Thursday that Gaza's worsening hunger crisis could spiral into catastrophe if not urgently addressed. UNRWA reported the Strip has faced severe aid shortages for over 3 months, accusing occupation authorities of tightening their blockade and restricting vital supplies. In a related note, the World Food Programme said intensifying conflict could completely halt relief efforts in Gaza, with over 70,000 children now suffering severe malnutrition. The UN agency stressed that current aid deliveries remain dangerously inadequate in both quantity and variety. For the third straight year, Palestinians in Gaza observe Eid al-Adha surrounded by starvation, destroyed markets empty of sacrificial animals, and collapsed health systems. Some families attempt traditional celebrations amid the rubble as occupation's ongoing blockade and military campaign continue. Wissam Ayadi has more in this report.
Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice, a time of joy, gratitude and unity for Muslims worldwide. But here in Gaza there is no celebration, only grief and survival. As the Zionist war enters its 80th day since the resumption of hostilities after the ceasefire break, Palestinians mark this holy occasion under bombs, siege and starvation.
I can't afford for my daughter any clothes or other things.
The streets that once bustled with Eid prayers and laughter now lay in ruins. Hundreds of thousands killed, most of them women and children, and hundreds of thousands of others buried under the rubble, and their families still searching. This is not Eid, this is a funeral for an entire population.
As Palestinians, we haven't seen any type of joy during the last 4 Eid holidays, neither with sacrifice, nor with cakes, nor with new clothes.
For the second year in a row, Gaza's residents said Eid has lost all meaning. Amid the ruins of war and deepening starvation, families who once celebrated with lamb feasts and joyful reunions are now scavenging for bread and shelter. And yet, even now, there is defiance. The children born into the war still hold on to hope. But how can they celebrate when the Zionist entity denies them food, water and safety, when the world watches but does nothing?
There are no signs of Eid at all. Everything is war. There are no signs of Eid at all. Before the war, we used to sacrifice sheep and we used to go to the market and buy clothes for the children, but we don't do that anymore.
Across the world, millions march for Gaza. They demand an end to this genocide. But will governments listen? Or will the killing continue while the powerful look away? This Eid, Gaza's sacrifice is not of sheep, but of souls. And as long as the bombs fall, their struggle for freedom will not end.
Ya Allah, Ya Allah.
Still with Palestine-related news, the Palestinian presidential spokesman Nabil Abu Rudaina warned that the war of extermination, settler terrorism and repeated U.S. vetoes will bring neither security nor stability. He stressed that the only path forward is to end the Zionist war on Gaza, deliver urgent aid to prevent famine, and allow the Palestinian people to achieve independence, rather than using the veto to shield ongoing crimes. Meanwhile, Hamas strongly condemned the U.S. veto of a UN Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza Strip, calling it a clear sign of Washington's blind support for the Zionist occupation. In a statement, the movement said the veto backs crimes against humanity in Gaza and gives war criminal Netanyahu a green light to escalate his brutal war of extermination against innocent civilians.
U.S. opposition to this resolution should come as no surprise.
The United States' use of the veto at UN Security Council reflects Washington's blind support for the Israeli occupation and its crimes against humanity in Gaza. America's position gives a green light to war criminal Netanyahu to continue his brutal genocide against innocent civilians in Gaza.
On a related note, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva reiterated Thursday that the far-right Zionist government is carrying out deliberate genocide in Gaza Strip. Speaking alongside French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris, Lula said the assault is not a war, but genocide by a heavily armed military targeting women and children.
O que está acontecendo em Gaza não é uma guerra.
What is happening in Gaza is not a war. It is a genocide being carried out by a highly equipped army against women and children. We are witnessing a genocide being committed before our eyes, day after day, and it can no longer be accepted. This is what is happening in Gaza. It is not a war.
As you followed in our tonight's headlines, Chinese President Xi Jinping and U.S. President Donald Trump held a phone call on Thursday amid ongoing trade and diplomatic tensions between the two global powers. According to China's Xinhua news agency, the call was requested by Donald Trump, who later confirmed on Truth Social that it lasted about 90 minutes. President Trump announced his phone discussion with China's leader produced constructive results, with trade teams set to meet soon. Both leaders extended mutual invitations for visits, signaling what Trump described as shared interests in cooperation between the nations.
We had a very good conversation with President Xi a little while ago, just before your arrival. In fact, we just hung up and they said, "You're here." I said, "That's pretty good. Two great leaders of the world in a very short period of time." We had a very good talk, and we've straightened out any complexity. It's very complex stuff, and we straightened it out. The agreement was we're going to have Scott and Howard and Jameson will be going and meeting with their top people and continue it forward. But no, I think we have everything. I think we're in very good shape with China and the trade deal. We have a deal with China, as you know, but we were straightening out some of the points, having to do mostly with rare earth, magnets, and some other things.
Separately, President Trump warned Thursday of additional tariffs on the European Union if trade negotiations fail. While suggesting oil and gas could be included in any agreement, the president issued the threat during a White House press conference alongside Germany's chancellor, maintaining his hardline stance on trade.
We will have a good trade deal. I mean, I guess that will be mostly determined by the European Union, but you're a very big part of that, so you'll be involved. But we'll end up hopefully with a trade deal, or we'll do something. You know, we'll do the tariffs. I mean, I'm okay with the tariffs, or we make a deal with the trade, and I guess that's what we're discussing.
Switching focus to another topical development now, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan hailed the Russian-Ukraine talks held in Istanbul last Monday as a historic step toward ending the bloody conflict. In a video message marking Eid al-Adha, he reaffirmed Ankara's commitment to halting the genocide in occupied Palestine and pushing for a just peace in the Russia-Ukraine war.
The meeting held in Istanbul on June 2nd marks a historic step towards ending a bloody war that has entered its fourth year. Ankara is making every possible efforts to stop the genocide being committed by Israel in Palestine, as well as to bring an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine through a just peace. With the support of all brotherly countries in the region, Syria will enjoy a last peace and return to its former glorious days.
In Pyongyang, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un pledged unconditional support for Russia across all areas, including its ongoing war in Ukraine. During a meeting Wednesday with Russian Security Council Secretary Sergei Shoigu, his second visit to the North is in under 3 months, Kim expressed confidence in Moscow's victory, according to the Korean news agency. Alliance defense ministers committed to the substantial funding package during Brussels talks with Secretary General Mark Rutte, framing it as essential for Kiev to secure a substantial and just peace. The announcement came as NATO works to solidify long-term support for Ukraine's defense efforts.
That will be a considerable extra investment. And this is why I predict that in The Hague we will decide on a much higher spending target for all the nations in NATO. Because we have to invest in our air defense systems, we have to invest in our, let's say, long-range missiles, we have to invest in our maneuverable land formations, command and control systems. All of this has to happen. And these mean huge investments. We need all over NATO territory. And by the way, doing this will also equalize what we are spending with what the United States is spending. We, Canada and Europe, equalizing with the US. And we know this is important because we want a fairer NATO where all our allies spend the same.
Additionally, President Trump dismissed prospects for an imminent Ukraine peace deal during White House talks with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, warning he would take aggressive measures against both Russia and Ukraine if the conflict continues. The American president framed his position as a response to ongoing bloodshed between the two countries.
All 7 swing states, which is a big deal. It's pretty unusual to do. It's very sad what's going on. We both feel that way. What's going on with Russia, Ukraine, and other things we talk about, but Russia, Ukraine in particular. I'd like to see it end, and maybe it'll end, but we get some news there'll be some fighting. Something happened a couple of days ago, and now they do a return, and here it goes. It's not good. He's unhappy about it. I'm unhappy about it. But I think eventually we're going to be successful in stopping the bloodshed. It's pure bloodshed. 5,000-6,000 young soldiers a week are being killed.
The Kremlin announced Thursday that President Vladimir Putin expressed readiness to Russia's close partnership with Iran to help break the deadlock in nuclear negotiations. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov confirmed Putin conveyed his offer to President Trump, who has repeatedly warned Tehran about dwindling time to address international concerns over its nuclear program.
We have a closer partnership with Tehran, and of course President Putin has said that we're ready to use this level of partnership with Tehran in order to facilitate and contribute to the negotiations that are taking place to resolve the problem of the Iranian nuclear dossier.
Moving on to a different matter now, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune received a phone call from Tunisian President Kais Saied, who extended Eid al-Adha greetings. According to a statement from the Algerian presidency, President Tebboune reciprocated the well wishes and prayed for the well-being of the Tunisian people. Both leaders reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening cooperation for the benefit of their peoples and the wider region. On the eve of Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of Sacrifice, the Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune took the opportunity to extend his best wish and a happy holiday to all Algerians in and outside the country, as well as Muslims around the world.
سنستقبل غدا إن شاء الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلي اللهم وسلم على إمامنا وحبيبنا ونبينا سيدنا محمد ألف صلاة وألف سلام عليه. أيتها المواطنات أيها المواطنون، سنستقبل غدا إن شاء الله عيد الأضحى المبارك لنحيي سنة سيدنا إبراهيم الخليل عليه السلام ونجعل منها مناسبة للتكافل والتغافر والتسامح. وبهذه المناسبة أتوجه بتهانية خالصة لكل الجزائريات والجزائريين داخل الوطن ولجاليتنا في الخارج ولحجاجنا الميامين في البقاع المقدسة، متمنيا لهم إتمام مناسكهم في أحسن الظروف.
On this occasion, the Algerian president also expressed his best wishes and solidarity with the Palestinian people subjected to a savage genocidal war.
كما أهني بهذه المناسبة الأمة العربية والإسلامية قاطبة، وأخص بالذكر أشقاءنا في فلسطين المحتلة الجريحة، راجين من الله أن يمن عليهم بالشفاء وبرفع عنهم الظلم، وفي الأخير نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يديم علينا نعمة الأمن والأمان ويتغمد شهدائنا الأبرار برحمته الواسعة. عيدكم سعيد، كل عام وأنتم بخير. تحيا الجزائر شامخة سيدة أبية، المجد والخلود لشهدائنا الأبرار، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
In a powerful display of faith and unity, millions of Muslim pilgrims gathered at Mount Arafat on Thursday, standing shoulder to shoulder in prayer on the holiest day of the annual Hajj pilgrimage, the day of Arafah. Sophia Kinturi reports now.
Millions of Muslim pilgrims gathered at Mount of Arafah in Saudi Arabia on Thursday to mark the day of Arafah, the most important step of the annual Hajj pilgrimage. Clad in simple white robes, they spent the day in prayer and meditation on the Mountain of Mercy, where Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is believed to have delivered his final sermon.
It's an indescribable feeling. Glory be to Allah. It's as if angels have covered one's body, and one feels nothing. One feels one's heart trembling with happiness, joy, hope, and certainty that Allah will forgive us and fulfill all our wishes and requests. When one sees this atmosphere, glory be to Allah, we're on the mountain of mercy, and it's as if mercy has truly descended upon us.
The day of Arafah is the spiritual peak of the Hajj, a once-in-a-lifetime obligation for all able-bodied Muslims who can afford the journey.
What I feel, I don't know if I can describe really what I feel, because it's really great. We are praising Allah for whatever He has given us and what we hope to have here and thereafter. So what we feel is really great.
After sunset, pilgrims will head to Muzdalifah to collect pebbles for the ritual stoning of the devil, which begins the next day during Eid al-Adha. The festival, celebrated by Muslims worldwide, commemorates Prophet Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice in obedience to Allah. As pilgrims complete this sacred journey, the spirit of unity, sacrifice, and devotion echoes far beyond the plains of Arafah, connecting millions of Muslims around the world in faith and celebration.
And that wraps up our news program for tonight. For more updates, you can always check our social media platforms. On behalf of All 24 News team, thank you for tuning in, and Eid Mubarak to you all.